So I sent this, like for me this morning already, the link to the exhibition. I will at some point maybe share my screen. You are also like welcome to share your screen if you want to do anything, but maybe it's first a small introduction because, for example, with Rick, I just got the contact from Stefan, who was working mainly on the Mira Zora project. And he said, yeah, I would be open to do a talk, but please don't forget the artists who are working on that. And then he gave me the contact information. Was like, okay, he said, like, please contact Rick. So I did that. Nova had some time, luckily, so and also Astrid. So maybe we start with whoever would like to. Maybe start with Astrid, if you like to, if it's okay. Maybe what are you doing? Like I know what you are doing, but maybe the other people don't. So would be.
Sure, thank you so much. Yes, it's late at night here, but it is somewhat doable. As Travis mentioned, our friends in New Zealand would struggle, but Australia just makes it. So hi, for those of you who I haven't met, my name's Astrid. I have somehow found myself in this space. I don't necessarily know how. I don't have any artistic background in anything, but I love SciComm, and I've learnt SciComm throughout my whole career. And I found that there was a bit of a gap, especially for Australian extinct animals, in showcasing what they might have been like. And in trying to fill that gap, I have essentially found myself as being the person creating a library of extinct Australian animals. So I try not to be too specialized in what I work on. So everything from extinct lungfish to dinosaurs to giant megafauna, things like that. And I've really tried to test my limits of locomotion and things by essentially rigging up skeletons like a character rig, like a video game character, and making them walk or fly or swim around. So that's kind of my little spiel. And hopefully I'll be able to showcase some stuff a bit later.
Yeah, I will definitely go through the exhibit by my screen with my screen sharing. So we have one room. You provided some behind the scenes stuff to see what also many people do nowadays to prove that they do this stuff by themselves. So yeah. So Nova, how about you? So what are you doing, from where, and why? So the thing is, I saw some of your stuff on posts, like from DinoCon, like people printed the stuff. So what is the thing you're doing?
Well, a little bit like what Astrid does. I also make 3D models of prehistoric animals, dinosaurs, and yeah, all arrays of animals, even modern animals. But that doesn't get asked a lot because they probably find a skeleton somewhere. And I make 3D models of them to be 3D printed. So I do this for prehistoric, for people that love prehistoric animals, and also for museums occasionally. Depends on what the subject is. I do this as a hobby, not as a job. But like I mentioned, I'm not a paleontologist. I don't have the broad vocabulary for it. I am a self-taught artist, and yeah, there were already paleo artists that made 3D models for 3D printing, and I'm one of the few that joined that area. And in the last recent years, I have been displayed in about 16 museums across the world now. So never thought that would happen in 3 years' time since doing this.
Yeah, that's really short amount of time to like get this kind of reach. Yeah.
Well, one model takes about, depends on the size and the complexity, and how much information can be found online about it, but approximately between 3 to 6 months for one model. Sometimes when there's a lot of information about a specific animal, I can maybe do it in 2 months, but that is very exceptional. And also when I get a lot of time for my wife.
Yeah, so because it's also not like your main thing to do, like you also need to do it on the weekend and at night, I guess.
Yeah, mostly at night.
Okay, maybe one short introduction from Rick. So what are you doing beside, like, yeah, just
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, is my microphone working again?
perfect.
Okay, good. Yeah, I'm Rick. I'm from the Netherlands. I usually work in 3D software like ZBrush and stuff. I started about 5 years ago doing this. I was mainly actually focusing on game art and stuff like that. I was actually in college for it, but I didn't like it, so I quit. I quit studying and started actually, trying to learn more about a specific topic in paleo art, which is creatures that lived before dinosaurs or creatures that are not dinosaurs, because I felt like as I started reading more about the natural history stuff, this is really a topic that doesn't have much reconstructions like Tiktaalik, which is famous, of course, but I made a model from that, and it's just nice to see how much this is spread out across the globe, because it suddenly appears in museums and stuff. So next to that, I'm also asked for really specific creatures that are usually weird or not really known for the big audience. So yeah, mostly it's that, or sometimes there's people asking me to make a cool dinosaur, and that's mostly toy companies from China. And they want more monsters, so my last assignment didn't work out, so I will stay stuck with the more scientific approach of creatures. I also made a T-Rex, the T-Rex from the Netherlands, that's displayed here. I usually work in 3D, and I make stuff for 3D printing. Sometimes it can be used for 3D animation, which I'm terrible at. So I usually ask other artists to do this because the rigging is terrible.
That's great at it.
Yeah, really terrible. Yeah, mostly it's focused just on making the creature believable and make something fun.
Okay, I would just go into, we'll go into the sharing of my screen, maybe, to just have the 3D exhibition here, which I found out with Astrid it is going a bit to the limit. So if you try to open it on the phone, there's a chance that, especially on Safari browsers, on the iPhone, it might not load properly, but we are working on it. I will just keep Rick in the loop just to go a little bit through the exhibition. I contacted you because of Mirasora mainly, and you were very kind and also Stefan said, okay, you can share the 3D model, which is not this one. Let me just.
That's slightly bigger, yeah.
It's slightly bigger. The thing is they are overlapping a bit, so we just try to get this one so you can also zoom in on the.
Cool.
With it much easier with the laptop. Also rotated. So this is the 3D model I received, which is really amazing. And I also saw that there is an actual 3D model in the museum in Germany, I guess.
Yeah, they 3D printed that one, which I provided for them. So, but that one is a little different from this one. I think it has a different pose, this one.
Yeah, it's a little bit different. So this is when you say you would like to work on strange animals which are not dinosaurs. Like, I guess this is the type of animal you would go for.
Yes.
Especially like when you look from the front, like what you have with the with the skin happening here, which was a really big publication, also with like in Nature, with the Nature cover and everything. I'm really happy that we have the 3D model because I didn't see it before. And you also provided some behind the scenes images, like how you did the rendering. I guess it's also how the skeleton and the model work together.
Yeah,
You
because
can-
we actually had a scan of the skull, which was really nice for me, because from a 2D image there is a lot of unknown factors, but with the skull you could really see that it was like shaped like a bird, and it had binocular vision, like you could really place the eyes so it could see depth.
So,
As
like
this,
this.
yeah. Without a 3D model, it would be difficult for me to interpret this specific thing.
So when I also added, like this is the image from Gabriel. So I just edited. It was also visible throughout. I also edited just for a reference that you have like the scientific reference kind of for the things. What was like when I guess you got, I don't know how you got contacted or if you just reached out, but how was the process like from the fossil to the actual model? I guess this is one of the things which is like really tricky, especially in this one. Like there are, when I remember correctly, I read the paper, there are like multiple specimens, but for most of them, you only have like some part of the skin structure, like, but not this, also not the complete skeleton. So how was it?
Yeah, I basically said to speak one from the start. Yeah, if you work as a 3D artist, it's really difficult to combine all these kind of references. So just pick a few as a main reference, and let's work from that. How Stefan reached out to me is I made a reconstruction on my own behalf of the Drepanosaur, which is a member of the same group. And he thought it was really fun, but full of errors, of course. And I'm happy to hear what those are. Yeah, I mainly actually worked on the information provided by the skeletal reconstruction made by Stefan, which is just a 2D image, and the skull, which was actually a scan. So yeah, this is the 2D image. This was a really fun process because along the way I started asking questions, and sometimes he just said, yeah, we don't know the answer to this, or we didn't think about this properly because we didn't try to fix the things you are trying to do. Like, for example, they don't know for sure how the jaw opens, so I made a few videos of what could work, because it will all influence the way my model will look like and how it will open the mouth on the image on the left. For example, that's the maximum amount it could open the jaw according to what I did in 3D, because otherwise the bones would interact in a weird way visually. Of course, it's not I think not real science in that way. But yeah, it opens up new questions and funny things you don't think about if you go really into detail. The details, like the colors and stuff, is just picked up from Gabriel's reconstruction, which is
Okay.
in shape kind of different, but we wanted to have consistency in the overall imagery of the two reconstructions that have been made. So that's actually, yeah, the color is just fantasy.
Okay, so there is like, because there is also like melanosomes like mentioned in the paper and stuff, but there's
Yeah.
just not a real reference. Like when you go from the color, you just picked, or Gabriel just picked something up. He thought it would be plausible, and this.
Yeah, I believe there were found some blacks, I believe, but of course not on the entire animal. It was just fragments.
Yeah.
So yeah, you have to fill in a lot of things.
No, and this is the end result, which like also made huge waves, which is really interesting, and also like from the time, like I guess people are waiting for more of them. Like they were also mentioning like a common ancestor and stuff, where say, okay, we are waiting waiting for this one. I will come back to you, like to all of you, to make more like a panel discussion, but I would also highlight step by step the things we have here. So the second half of this room is dedicated to Astrid's models. So what you have on the wall is like the behind the scenes. Like here you have the animations talking on. Let me just, maybe it sometimes takes some time to load. Okay, there are videos. I guess my laptop is a little bit overwhelmed, but if you click on these images which have the play button here, maybe you try out later, there will be videos executed which don't want to work yet. You have you have two behind the scenes here. You have one of the sauropod over there, and then the animations, which you can have a look on. And as you can see, like we have 6 models, all of them like from different groups. Maybe Astrid, like what is your motivation? Where are your hurdles? Like when you have different animals, different species, there's a lot to consider. How did you get into that basically?
Absolutely. Yeah, I'm happy to talk through it a little bit. So I mainly work in Blender. That's what I do most of my 3D reconstruction work in. And the main reason for that is because I'm also a teacher at Monash Uni, and I like being able to teach the students that they can use essentially free programs sometimes to do this kind of work. And I like being able to showcase that sort of thing. What you can see here in this hall are 6 different models from my Mesozoic collection, my Mesozoic library. So these are all extinct Australian animals, and they've all been kind of grouped together in a couple of different ways. I really like testing myself on different kinds of animals and seeing how they're built and how they're constructed. My background is zoology, and so I love seeing fossils as animals. And this is, in my mind, the best way to learn the anatomy of something is to just make it. I've essentially undertaken quite different processes for a lot of these. The very first one that I made of these 6 was the Temnospondyle, Siderops. And that one, I essentially tried to answer the question of if you have an old description paper, for example, this one was from the 80s, and you just have 2D versions of the different views of figures, what is the best way to do that? Because 2D projections of 3D models are often quite distorted in wrong ways. And what's the best way to line them up and capture the morphology and the shapes that you want? And so I had a great time learning that. A lot of what I do is very mathematical. I will often model or have scans of bones in series, and then I'll use a bit of a mathematical formula in Blender to morph between them to create missing bones. So things like rib cages can be built like that if there are missing vertebrae, and that's quite helpful. And I'll often try and curve them like that. And I love being able to make them walk and be able to fly. The hardest animation of these 6 was by far Draco, which is the pterosaur. Pterosaur movement is very weird. And there are lots of different theories about how pterosaurs took off and landed. I went with a particular type of theory here, a particular type of launch, and essentially modeled it based on that. So I have everything here from almost complete skeletons, which the plesiosaur, the polycotylid, is an almost complete skeleton, and that was done from a photogrammetry scanned almost every bone, and then reconstructed and put it together, all the way through to the Draco, which is known from very few bones, and then I supplanted it through morphing and through adding in some of its close South American relatives, just to try and see what it might have looked like in proportion. So all of these models I have in 3D, and I've sort of downsized them for this. But the main place that I work is on Sketchfab. So all those animations are on there if you would like to see them.
So the thing is, Let me just check if I can find them that way. We cannot, like, you are talking about your animations. So we need to see them. Like, there is a video in the exhibition, but basically, like you mentioned, okay, the most difficult one was
Wow.
this one.
And the greatest thing about this is that it's not just a video. You can kind of scroll around and you can zoom in and you can look at the different parts in
So,
order
yeah.
to interact.
Like what you can do, and it's running like in an endless loop. So you are making sure that the endless loop is kind of smooth, I guess.
Yes.
So this is what you can see. Like there's a lot of work in it. Like all the animations, all the things are animated. I was already last year very excited, like, and work like you know. I printed this model on this kind of. Oh, I forgot the name for it in English. How it's called, because in German, like you name it kind of thumb cinema, like you have the small booklet and you can watch it like you have a video in your own hands. So I used it. I used this animation for it to show it on TEDxUOCon last year. And there are also all the other models which are animated, where you can have a look on. Also some that are also from Australia and more recent. So there's a lot of stuff and work going on, and it's not even like your main focus of your work.
No, in fact, this has nothing to do with my PhD. This is just a bit of a side quest, really, mainly to sort of fill that gap and to also, especially for the students that I teach, be able to put a dinosaur or a megafauna up on the screen and kind of showcase the different ways that animals move.
Yeah, that's really amazing and also a tricky thing to do. So I'm always amazed. You say, okay, I have a new model, and also for the sauropod with the new publication, I was like, this is a lot. And also someone spotted it in the museum, I guess.
Yes, they've been published in well, they're in a few museum exhibits. Currently, my sauropod model is on display at the Lightroom exhibit honoring prehistoric planet in the UK, and some of my megafauna are down in Tasmania. Nova has a question of, do you do the rigging in Blender? That's correct. Yes, the whole thing is rigged in Blender. If you actually go over to the Sketchfab page again, I can show you what the rig looks like because they're all in there. So if you open up one of them, you can actually see what the rigs look like.
The rigging process is too much for me.
Yeah, so if you go into here, you can do bones or bone influence, and both of them will show there we go. Essentially, I rig this in a much more complicated way than you would a video game character. I rig a digital bone for every real bone, so that it is moving
crazy.
like a real animal.
No, so it has a really long tail. So I will try to catch it somehow.
Yes, it does.
No, and you have it for every model. Like you can really see. Okay, what's so here you can see it. No, this is really, and you have it for every single one. Yeah, so you really want to also push your own limits, I guess.
Exactly, and I try to at least inform the. So Amanda asked, "What can you explain what rigging is?" Absolutely. Essentially, what it is that you're creating a digital bone in the system for every real bone that would be there, and you're posing them in certain ways in order to simulate movement. And so I assign each bone a certain way, and it kind of moves like its own thing. Yes, it's pretty fun. But I also try and make sure the animations are based in either like footprint tracks that have been found or the range of motion of the bones and things like that. So they at least have some basis. Obviously, there's going to be artistic interpretation here, but trying to inform it.
Yeah, but basically you can also link the bones with some kind of restrictions, I guess. So it's so you don't have to place every single one or touch every single one, I guess.
Absolutely, yes.
Beautiful.
When we go to the next room, there are some models provided. Like, I just know you by Nova or Nova Studios. So no, this is the model you provided. So two of them, like you said, okay, you have 3 embryo models, which are like not as scientifically accurate as the other ones. So you said, okay, the other ones are more accurate. So what is, like, maybe you can tell a bit, okay, like, what is your process? How do you approach it? Especially also the embryo stuff where there are like just a very few fossils. So for every other species, we can just imagine how it might have looked like.
Well, I actually started out making a fetus embryo dinosaur because the first one I ever saw was from the Reborn company, and I just thought it wasn't detailed enough, so I made one myself. That's how I actually got started and got traction in the community. And that's people asked me to make the T-Rex, the Utahraptor, Oviraptor, Spinosaurus fetus models. And these are the only fantasy models I actually do. For the pose, I look a little bit to how chickens are formed in the egg, but take it with a lot of salt, actually the entire ocean. And I take a very broad artistic approach to it. I also want to make it a little bit fragile, but not too much that it would be cute. So it would still be when you hold it in your hands, it's still terrifying and dangerous. You still get the approach that it's a dangerous animal, but in a more fragile position. How I do this, I first make the original skeleton, so like the normal animal, and then I over exaggerate the head, make the rib cage smaller, denser. The vertebrae are a little bit reposed to get it in that pose and make it still recognizable, but yeah, more like how a baby would be formed. And for that approach, I often look at chickens and gooses inside of the egg. So I also made a reconstruction. I had that one here. So one time they found, well, I don't think that they still proved it was real, but they found a small dinosaur inside of the egg in Yingling. Correct me if I'm wrong, Astrid. Yingling, the Oviraptor specimen they found in the fetus.
Yunglong? Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Yeah, and there's a lot of information to be found about that, and that's why I made this. This is a 3D printed reconstruction of it. You can actually take it out and see how fragile it would be. This is the actual size of the Oviraptor yin yang skeleton. And this is the only fetus that is actually anatomical correct. But the other ones are actually fantasy pieces and collector's pieces. People really love them, but for the most part, I do anatomical correct skeletons. But yeah, I have a thing for the fetus models too, because that's how I started out. Because my son wanted one, and I have to listen to my son.
This makes total sense. And I guess for the other one, like you collect data publications, like you said, you were like not trained in this stuff, so you really have to read through this, work through this a lot.
Well, I used to have another hobby where I made highly realistic drawing portraits of people. And when I started out in 3D modeling, I actually took a lot of that uh, hobby with me into the 3D space to work with. So yeah, a lot of the drawing and also the information that can be found on ResearchGate, Morphosource, Digimorph, etc. really help a lot. And also the construction artists like Hartman, Dr. Hartman, and Matt Dempsey also really help a lot with how many vertebrae are in a skeleton, how the size and shape would be to make a 3D reconstruction of it. But yeah, a lot of my work is based on research papers and also the help with from several paleontologists that aid me in my pursuit of making anatomical correct skeletons.
Yeah, this also makes sense because like it's hard to do it without collaborations, I guess. So you need, especially when you work on different species, you need some experts on that.
Yeah,
Before we go further, I will just make a small round to the other exhibit pieces, like from people who contributed who could not join today, just for a small advertisement. Which like the first one is called VFB Paleo Art on Instagram.
Fabrizio.
Is doing also amazing renderings with the 3D models. We have Nicola Rodlik, which can be found as Dino and Dog on Instagram, providing a whole bunch of 3D models with cute scenes, with really extraordinary scenes. Because my coloring skills in Blender and my skills in Blender are like really basic ones, they just got a basic color, and I needed to compress them a lot. But just to give you an idea, like there are some of the models which you can get from them either for free or purchase them. Many of the models are also used by James Pascoe, who painted a couple of them for DinoCon, also for the auction and stuff. He is doing really, really amazing paintings with them. And I added the models from Olaf here because I really like the details and also the love he put in all the models. So when it comes to all the models, and I have 3 of you here, I will just, because it's more also a discussion with all of us, just the basic questions. Why do we need 3D models and why do you do them? Like, isn't it enough to have images? So why do we need to have skeletons and also the full body models for like Mirasaura?
Well, my approach actually was when I was probably like most when I was little and saw the Jurassic Park movie. I started visiting museums to learn more about these animals, and my thing was fun. When I was little, I used to say, when I am later a grown up, still I'm not a grown up, by the way. And when I'm rich, I want to have a real dinosaur skeleton. So, yeah, it's not going to happen. So, I started thinking, how would it be possible to have a dinosaur skeleton in my home? So I started modeling, learning to work with also Blender, like Astrid is using, and a couple of other tools. And Blender is free, by the way. I highly encourage people to get into that. And it's a beautiful program. And then I started realizing, well, maybe I can make my own skeleton. And now, when I started out, my first model, one of my first models was a Brachiosaurus that I put in my home and put it online on Facebook. And that's when people started telling me, I want to have my own museum. Now, my house isn't big enough for a real-sized Brachiosaurus, and so I made a small one. So I started making models so for people that want to have their own little museum, actually. That's how it all got started, so people can have a payable option that is affordable, but still anatomical correct to what you see in museums. Now, I don't use Scan because there's a lot of issues with copyright information about scans that you cannot use them for commercial reasons. So I sculpt everything from a ball of clay. I sometimes demonstrate this on my Instagram, how I start sculpting this model. I have some videos of the Bambiraptor I'm currently working on. I also started VR sculpting. Astrid, you should really try that. It's really fun to do.
I saw it's like you did it like a live, what is it,
Well,
live, real life story, whatever, where
yeah.
you did it, and I was like, is it like I didn't expect it. I just saw you were live. I just checked it out and was like, okay, you are using VR for doing it. So
Yeah, I made this Simusuke skull. I made it in VR, and the beautiful thing is you can blow it up as big as you want, and you can really go in close in for the details. And the thing that you can really use your hand to sculpt different areas is a really wonderful feeling. So that's also something that it's a payable software, but it's manageable. It's not that expensive. The expensive part is the VR helmet. But yeah, that's my main goal was to make a payable option for people that love prehistoric animals and that want to have skeleton displays in their home. Now, a couple of them are life-sized skeletons. They're not all desktop models, but you can imagine not a lot of people would have homes to be able to have a life-size Parasaurolophus in their home. So that's why I also do the desktop models. So yeah, that's kind of the thing I'm going for, making it accessible for everyone. And also, I do some stuff for museums too. I'm currently working on a Dimetrodon with some paleontologists from France who recently discovered some parts of the maxilla, the feet, a femur, and a couple of vertebrae with broken sails on it. And I'm doing the reconstruction on that one. And I usually approach it with the option. So if I do this, can I use the 3D model commercially? Then I'll probably do it at a really cheap price because I can put it on my website and people can buy it. If they prefer to keep it in-house, yeah, that's also something that's possible. It's a little more expensive. So I try to bring out as much anatomical correct models to the public as possible, and if the people let me.
so this is also, I guess, also like some kind of mission from some people also, like I met in the UK, so make it affordable, because there are people really curious about anatomical correct, also skeletal models. I cannot and I will not exclude myself. We should not rate real fossils, but we may aim to have like the models and the printed ones, which I also really like to have. It is the case, like I cannot deny it.
Yeah.
So Astrid, you are not doing like printable models, but like you said, okay, you use them more for educational purposes. Or why do you use or create models at all? Like you push your own limits, of course.
Yes, yeah, no, yeah. So mine I would be quite difficult to print. I have done them in small batches before, but the only way, because I tried to make them anatomical, none of the bones are connected to any of the others. So it would just be a pile of bones. The only way I've really been able to do it before is print them with a sculpt around it in transparent print, so that the skeleton is kind of on the inside. Yeah, so that's my experience with it, which is very limited. But
You could do it like
yes,
this, Astrid. These are vertebrae of the Simusuchus, but they're fused together for printing, and just put a metal rod between them, and then you can connect the bones. And visually,
yep,
you can't see it that it's connected.
yeah,
Depends on how.
absolutely, yeah. So there are some really great ways of doing that. I would probably have to alter the models, because when you animate them, you kind of have them sort of be separate. But I love 3D models for a few reasons. I think that in my mind, they do not replace traditional paleo art. Like, they do not replace 2D art, but they're showcasing something different. I think that as someone who has a background in anatomy, I see a 2D skeletal sometimes, and I'm like, that's a little warped. And it kind of is. Like, if you put a lateral side view up against a top view of those skeletals, often they kind of don't quite match because of perspective. If you're looking down at something, if you're looking at a fossil in front of you, often the thing that's closest to you seems bigger and further away. So it's only in a digital space that you can make things perfectly perpendicular to each other. And I love the idea of we have an Oculus that we use for our students, and they can put it on. They can see the sauropod life size in front of them. And there's something about the scale of it that I think you can only really do in 3D models in a digital space that is quite overwhelming and quite it draws up that interest. I think that it really does just add a new layer to the way that we view these animals. And I was just getting a little. Sometimes fossils are depicted as like these old weird dead things, and I really wanted to try and showcase them as animals. And I think that it's one of the best ways to do it.
What does or what can virtual reality like play for a role in your educational approaches? Or does it play a role already? Because I guess it makes, like, especially for very big animals, when you have this kind of extra layer, I guess it's more impressive to show what's happening and how big they really were.
For sure, yeah. I think that, I mean, it's cool not just for the huge things like the sauropods, but also for the temnospondyls that, I mean, today the largest amphibians are just over a meter with our giant salamanders, and these things were 3 to 4 meters long. And so being able to see that in front of you is just quite like unlike anything else. And we use both VR and AR. So sometimes I really like VR because you can put someone in that space, you can create a room, and they can just be looking at the animal. But then for our open days for the university, I'll set up a camera and do an AR situation where people can walk past it and get their photo taken with the giant marsupial in life size next to them. And that's quite fun too. It can be, I try not to rely on it too much because it is a technical ability that not a lot of people have access to right now. But it is a cool additional thing that you can do with it.
Yeah, I guess I can imagine it also adds to the, like, it makes people curious, like to really also try it out a bit. So Rick, from your like approach, what is you like? Are you working mainly in in science, or are you also working like in more in public, or like where's your when you have to see yourself between Astrid and Nova, where would you be? Because I would say like Astrid is really more on the educational side, and Nova is more on like educational and science. Nova is science influenced, but also like more on the having the 3D print at home and also accessible for museums. Are you somewhere in between, or where would you see yourself?
Somewhere in between, I think, but more on the artistic side. You know, to get back to the question about what's the value of 3D. For me, it was actually, okay, now I have this 3D model. I can print this. I can make digital renders of it. I can animate it if I'm willing to do it, because it's really difficult. Yeah, really the multifunctional thing of the 3D reconstruction is what I think is for me preferable, because I can also make 2D renders of it, of course. But where I would place myself, yeah, more on the artistic side. Of course, read a lot of science. I listen to the scientists when they advise me, and I try to, stick to, as much as possible to what they're saying. But sometimes they also say, yeah, after this project, for example, with Mira Saura, you're free to go and add some things like a different skin, different colors. Make it do a nice stuff. I tried to make a nice animation this night in Blender, but my computer exploded when I was trying to render it, so that's why it was a late nighter. So unfortunately, that didn't happen. So yeah, it was a 2 frames. They looked really nice, and then it was just done. Yeah, I would place myself maybe then more in the artistic side of it, because I was spending a lot of time fixing the light, making the environment look like something atmospheric, to convince people that this creature was really alive. It was not just something we can talk about. It really existed, and sometimes this is best to communicate this with an image, I think. So there goes the value of the actually traditional paleo art comes into place. To have more atmosphere, more coloring, have a feeling with it. So maybe, yeah, I think in between. I'm in between.
Yeah, so I also think like there's a huge value of seeing as art, like to really make it accessible for people, and to see, okay, like how did it look? Because we have a lot of crazy animals already, and we had more crazy animals back then, so it makes sense. Comes to collaboration, like how, I will just ask the question. I know the answer, but I would like to see your perspective. How valuable are collaborations for you, and also the network? And like, what are the people you approach? Is it like more fellow artists? Is it like scientists? Is it like, because you are working in like also in different fields, you also work like for museums and for publications and stuff. So there are many different people to contact and to get advice from.
Yeah, it depends on the project. Mostly it's just scientists. For one project that I'm working on, I have someone who is fixing the animation in Blender, because I have to do all the sculpting, the detailing, and it takes a lot of time. We have a few scientists in this project. But also, for example, I'm working on music with sounds and synthesizers, and for this video, I really want to have sounds in this, so I approached fellow musicians for this, and this can be great fun because it's partly based on science. There has been some studies on what dinosaurs could have sounded like, but then to add something to it that is more like an artistic value of how to communicate this, then maybe even like musicians, yeah. And for this I really want to have 3D models to skin, because I usually start with 2D references, which is just a pain. So I would love to get that from this meeting. Also, the animations look great. So I know a new animator from now. Thank you. So yeah, this really is really helpful for what I'm doing. So thank you for that.
Yeah.
So how about the others? Like, what is with like your value of the collaborations? Who's the person you contact first? How do you approach it? For example, if you have different species, you say, okay, is it something you would like to do, and then reach out to people, or how?
Mostly the people that reach out to me in general are paleontologists that right now there's this wait, I have to get his name right. I'll first open my Instagram for that. I'm sorry. So now I just received, like, for instance, a text from Matthew, who is a paleontologist in West Nevada, and he was asking me for a Dallosaurus. Now, the holotype of that specimen is in Dallas, and he has contacts there, and he will provide me for the information to make a skeleton of it. But that's the normal way that something like that comes together. But for the overall completion of a skeleton model, there's a lot of different factors that has to work out. First, there has to be enough research papers, that enough information about on the website to fill in any gaps that you might have missed. Also, context on the field, like paleontologists, curators from museum, that would give access or more information about a specimen, or guide you to the right person that can answer your questions about a certain specimen. That is also very important. But yeah, it's more of an organic way. When I first started out with my first skeleton, it was actually pretty coincidental. I made a 3D dino for my son, and one of the parents, he took that dino to class when he was little, and one of the parents is a paleontologist here for Brussels, and he asked me if I could make a Brachiosaurus skeleton, and he provided me with all the information, and that's how I actually got started out. And from there, it just kind of grew. Then I made an Instagram account, and yeah, it grew from there. I have a lot of people reaching out to me, sending me without asking information, and yeah, it's a very organic way of approaching it. I'm very lucky that a lot of people just spontaneous, and also meetings like this. I knew Astrid before. I've talked to her also through Instagram, I believe it was, because of her work on the animation of the dinosaurs. That was very interesting for me, because I suck at the rigging. It's a different part of 3D of the 3D space. You have sculptors, you have animators, you have a whole different team. For a movie, it's not just somebody who sculpts the model. Then you have somebody who has to make a low poly model. Then you have somebody who has to make the rigging, and then you have somebody who does the texturing. In my case, I'm actually, confined into the sculpting area, and for the texturing, the lighting is just a simple render. I don't do the broad rigging and texturing fields. So for me, it's just a sculpting. But yeah, contexts are very important. Otherwise, I wouldn't to have made so many models in the 4 years time I've been doing this.
Yeah, I guess this also highlights like why, like how important it really is. But when you, for example, Astrid, you are in the field, does it make it more easy or more difficult to make correct models? Or is it like your own perfectionism?
That's a fantastic question because the answer is that it makes it more difficult, I think. So I do get access to quite a few great scans. So I work quite closely with the Australian synchrotron and with a lot of people around the country and in New Zealand as well. We have quite a close relationship with them. But I also, this also means that I'm very privy to a lot of things about what's happening behind the scenes in the paleo world here. And so I know of very complete specimens of things that would make fantastic reconstructions, but we're waiting on the paper to be published before we do anything like that, because obviously we want to try and make sure that's the introduction of that animal to the world. And hopefully, if I can produce something like the sauropod that goes along with new descriptions of paper of specimens, which is quite nice. But yes, I work mainly with the scientists themselves. Some have very complete specimens. In Australia, unfortunately, we have almost nothing is very complete, even the modern stuff. But I have been asked to work on other things as well, so stegosaurs and things like that. And I often say that I would maybe prefer if they give the opportunity to somebody over there, just because I'm trying to kind of build this library of things here for now. Maybe I'll expand in the future, but it is kind of nice to see that there is interest for animals that are not just late Cretaceous North America, and that there are so many other things out there.
It is. People just need to know about them. I guess like this is in, especially also in documentaries, like you see like, yeah, you have the Cretaceous, you see like the typical like common animals depicted there. I guess it's important to have people who show that there are other animals. Like also maybe try out whatever, Spinosaurus, T-Rex, whatever, but also in their portfolio show that there are different animals.
Well, it's also a big minefield to work around, because you also have companies that make castings of real dinosaur bones, and when I ran into a few troubles because a couple of years ago, like for instance, I made an Anzu skull. Now that skull was not before I didn't realize that is a skull that was made by Trebolt. Paleontology was a well-renowned company for 3D for casting reconstructions, and they actually contacted me with a cease and desist because they thought I have scanned their skull, and I had to put up the video on my Instagram showing how I made a model from a 3D ball of clay into a skeleton, into the skull that I'm selling. So you have to be real careful, because on the internet you can find a lot of scans, and the difference between a scan and a sculpted reconstruction is a scan is copyright protected, and you cannot use that for commercial gain if you don't have proper documentation and authorization from the people that made the scan. But the fossil in itself is not copyright protected, because you can't copyright Mother Nature, as they say. But the scans are made by a hospital, university, whatever. They have the copyright protection of their work made by their instruments. So if you don't have that documentation and authorization to use those scans into your model, then you're treading on very thin ice. That's why I sculpt everything. Most of my models, I sometimes, like for the Dimetrodon, I am introducing for the first time actual 3D scans into the model, but also because I have authorization from the people to use their scans into the model to make the 3D reconstruction. And if that's not documented, and on some web pages that sell 3D models, you find a lot of scans taken from ResearchGate, Digimorph, Morphosource, and they put it on websites like Cult3D, for example, and ask 5 viewers from it. And that's why I also have a Cult3D page to combat those people. And the models they trying to sell, the CT scans they trying to sell, I put up for free.
Okay, yeah, it sounds really like interesting. Also, something you need to consider, like really when you also want to sell stuff, then really make it accessible for people.
Yeah, a lot of people that think it's a quick buck, you're very mistaken.
No, I
Yes,
also
100%. And I sort of take the other side, which is I just have decided not to commercialize it. Because yeah, it's especially when you're working, like nothing that is in mine is directly from a scan, but a lot of them are like quite directly informed by scans. And
There's nothing
the
wrong.
only yeah, exactly, yeah. And so what I often do when I speak to the people who scan them is I say, look, I'm not going to commercialize this, but I want to try and develop a contract with you just to say this is going to be available for people to see on Sketchfab. They're not going to have access to download the model unless they pirate it, which is illegal. But it's going to be an available resource for education. Like that's kind of how I get around it. Of it's not being sold, but it is available for people to look at.
yeah. No, it's also what you sometimes like when I ask you about models, it's also sometimes, no, I cannot publish this one. You can only publish like very certain models or share them. So it makes sense.
I have to say something about Sketchfab. I once got pirated from Sketchfab. All my models are available on Russian and Chinese websites for sale. And I tried, to prosecute them, but it was impossible according to the lawyers because it's so far away. So please be careful.
Well,
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, I know. It is something that I've considered, and it's something that I raise with all the people that I work with. Essentially, what we've decided is that its accessibility for classrooms and things like that kind of outweighs that risk in our mind. And nothing that I put up there is high enough resolution to be considered as good as the scans that they have. So yeah, you're right. It is a risk. But unfortunately, people are going to try no matter where you put it.
Yeah, I've learned my lesson.
well, the thing is, with my models can all be downloaded on my website, but like I showed you, the vertebrae are all meshed together, and you can separate it in 3D if you know what you're doing and etc. But then you will have to erase all the textures with this, which is nearly impossible to do. And also the dimensions, the shapes. Then you have a very distorted skeleton. And I have seen my models pop up on Etsy stores uh, without any recognition or authorization from me to use my models commercially. I Firstly I sent them a cease and desist, and if they don't react to that, well, yeah, then they will get a letter from my lawyer. But for me, it's a little bit easier because I'm indoctrinated as a company called Nova Studios. If you're working as a free-based artist, it's very difficult for a lawyer to represent you internationally. If you're a company, it's a lot easier to represent you. And yeah, in the last couple of two years, I had to close down 7 Etsy shops because they were selling my work without my authorization.
Yeah,
So
but you need to pay for that, right?
I have vendors like Dinosauria Creatures, Extinct Paleo Art, and a couple of others, Croc Gallagher, but they pay me a yearly license and I get a fee from every model they sell. And they have permission from me to use my models commercially. It's also to reach out to different parts of the world that don't have real access to 3D printers that can buy already 3D printed model on those sites. Because not everyone has a 3D printer at home.
No, true. But it also means like it's very, unless you have the company and maybe also have the lawyer and sometimes money for the lawyer, depending on the case, it's really a tricky thing, I guess, too.
Well, if you win the case, in a lot of the times, the people that lose the case have to pay the lawyer.
Yeah, I guess like, yeah, 3D. Guess also really depends on the case because for you it's a business and like yeah, it's really tricky.
Yeah.
Especially if you like create the models for educational purposes or for science and stuff, and then you have other things to do than than chasing these people all the time. So it's really hard topic. Yeah. I have maybe one question. So because all my events are around paleo artist, and whenever there are like people already established in the field, I always ask the question, how did you approach it? How to get into it? Because there are like some people who would like to do art more professionally, not like as a hobby. So maybe it's just like nobody has a recipe for it, like that's for sure. But maybe something like from your experience that helped you a lot. For example, there are some people I had last time, Chris Manius, who said, yeah, usually when I like have a project with paleo art and just imagine he has 4 artists considered, he says, okay, 2 of them I contact really established artists, like not necessarily friends, but some people like he knows. And the other half, he tries to get new or more unknown artists in. So what is like your perspective on that, or how did you, because you are like you work now and also like work now on publications which are like quite big, work for museums, work for stuff which is like visible here and there?
For me is the approach and how to start out is read a lot and educate yourself a lot before jumping in. I still have a lot to learn, especially about morphology of bones and anatomical digitalizations of everything, and the form and shapes of every different vertebrae is always different. So before you dive into a certain specimen, make sure you understand it first, and don't jump in thinking, "Oh, I'm just going to do this." Not like for ceratopsians, not every vertebrae for like the ones in a triceratops, not going to fit the ones on a protoceratops, etc. A lot of people just reuse the same bones. They're very differently shaped. You can't see that on a photo. You have to really study the specimens in that case. And also, yeah, have a great foundation to work from. Mine was from doing anatomical, realistic portrait drawings. that was my foundation I started from for 3D sculpting. Before I did the 3D sculpting, I was already drawing from since I was 6 years old, doing portraits. So I have a pretty big foundation to start from there into the 3D space. I still have a lot to work to learn about the 3D space. So nobody's perfect, and never forget, when you think you have it figured out, you have it. You're just starting it. So yeah, don't get over too confident.
Yeah, I guess so. Okay, so like your takeaway is okay, there is a passion. Like even if you have not the biggest foundation, you need to create one to showcase like what you have, know the stuff you would like to do.
Yeah.
And at some point it may attract the right people, like it did in your case. How is it for, let's say, how is it for you, Astrid?
Yeah, it's interesting. I think that, I mean, I mentioned this before, but I don't have an artistic bone in my body. At least I didn't think I did. I'm absolutely atrocious at drawing. Can't make an animal look like an animal for the life of me. And so I kind of never thought that was going to be in the cards. But my foundation with this was zoology and learning how living animals work, and kind of trying to understand that, and then seeing the potential for applying that to extinct animals too. But I genuinely think that you can kind of start from quite a few different places here. Like you can have an art background or an animation background, or even just a tech background is really helpful sometimes. Some of the people I work with the most are just straight up pure mathematicians, and they're really, really good at understanding how the curves of different things interact with each other in a way that you just don't learn in almost anything else. But if you have the science background, you could be a paleontologist, really understand a certain group. Zoology, I think that the line between the two is quite blurred sometimes. Even medicine, I think there's quite a lot of very strong parallels there. It all sort of depends, I guess, on what interests people the most. If they want to get into this field, it's good to sometimes find an area that isn't super populated. There aren't a lot of people working on 3D animals for a reason. It's hard. But I think that if you sort of find your space and play to your strengths, it can go quite far.
Okay, yeah, it's also like a similar approach, I guess, like to have the foundation, whatever it is, and also find a niche, like in all of your cases, some kind of 3D reconstructions with the different focus. I want to build up on that, but first I need to get Rick's perspective.
Yeah, to start up with the foundation, I think I was pretty good at drawing animals. I liked to go to zoos, and make all the sketches of animals, and or maybe only draw the legs and see how everything works. And I do this since I was 10 years old or something. And the other foundation is, maybe you can see it next to me. It's books. Read, do your research, as Nova said. Perfectly agree with everything he just said. And most of my projects is just also reading, research, taking things slowly. For example, I'm now reconstructing a T-Rex, and it's really like sometimes I have to wait until I get the response from the paleontologists, and it's just about how big is this part, what's the volume of this part of the tail, the muscles and stuff. So yeah, I think research and taking things carefully. And then on the other hand, at the end stage where I'm free to go make skills and fill in the gaps with my own artistic ideas, this is the most fun part for me. Yeah, so, and I think also to like it is really important foundation. If you
I
don't
guess
like
so.
it, and sometimes to be honest, I'm like, oh no, I have to do this again. I have to retopologize. So it's not always fun, but I think we can all agree on this.
Use remesher.
Yeah, I use C-Remesher, but it's not perfect. So
No, it's not.
yeah.
So there are lots of different artists like finding the niche, be like having the foundation working on their stuff. Do you think there's still space for more artists?
Yeah, of course, there is always more space for artists. There's a lot of creatures that still deserve to get reconstructions. I once made a list. It's entirely, it's almost exploding. I don't look at it because then I get stressed out. I do this for fun. I get a lot of messages from people who say, "Yeah, can you make this fish? Can you make this fish?" And sometimes I just have to be honest. Like, no, today I'm gonna go in town and have a drink with some friends, and I just do this for now. I'm picking up things back again because I quit for a few years as a hobby and a sort of side job.
For the Nova, for the 3D models, there are many, especially like at the beginning, there were lots of bigger companies providing models and stuff. Now it's more like smaller companies. Like, I guess you also saw on Instagram, like
Well,
dinosaur skeletons in the UK, like this Ruben art from, oh, is he, I guess from Ireland, I'm not sure. And there are like many people, like, how is it from you? Is there more space
well,
for 3D accessible art for people who want to print stuff or paint stuff?
I encourage everyone that has a love for creating 3D models and printing and etc. Uh, um, Alex from Dinosaur Skeletons, I we often message each other. He does phenomenal work, but his approaches and his final work are a little bit different than mine. I do mostly desktop models, so people can build an entire museum with desktop models. He builds mostly life-sized dinosaurs. Um, he also made a Bambi Raptor, also a species that I am working on. Well, because of Dynacon, I agreed with him. I'm not going to finish my Bambi Raptor so he can be on display at Dynacon. Because he was still going to unveil his website, he was still starting out. And I said to him, listen, I'm not going to get in your way or something. We are competition, but I see it more as colleagues doing the same, about the same type of work. For me, it's a hobby. For him, it's more of uh, actually a living. So, yeah, I said to him, listen, I'm not going to bring my Bambi Raptor to Dynacon because I want to support him too. He's also an artist. I respect his work. So not every artist is the same. Some really do find it competitive. I really don't have any problems with other people that joining in. There's from since when I was starting out, there were only two or three of us, me, Inhuman Species, that made the world renowned Velociraptor skeleton that a lot of people have printed, and uh, Insect Head, who's also a 3D artist, but not a lot of paleo artists made skeletons. Since then, there's I think 10 people that started out doing skeletons in different types of ways, like Astrid. Then you have Bowie Duck, who also makes 3D models with a little bit of a different size and then a different texture and a different outcome. But essentially, we're all in the same boat. And I also help out other artists like Matt Remiari from Ancient Era. He does mostly live fleshed out sculpts. like Fabrizio from FFB, if they needed references, and I have made or working on a skeleton of that species, and they asked me if they can use the 3D model skull together, I have about a 17 tera database with references, photos, scans, papers, and it's 17 tera bytes. I'm not misspoken. It's a lot of extra hard drives that I have gathered over the multiple years. And that's also information that I paid for. So I can't distribute that freely, but I can direct them to the people from that paper, from that book. That's something I don't share.
Mhm.
But if I made already a 3D reconstruction and it can help out another artist, then I will. So yeah, that's
Yes.
I truly believe as video artists you have to support each other.
Yeah, so
And
because I also like experienced the community as really open and like most of them being in the same boat.
yeah, some are very competitive and really do see you as the enemy, which I find hilarious. But yeah, sometimes I also have a little bit of a mean streak, you can say. The people that are very competitive and are very towards, yeah, he's a competitor and want to be sure you don't get up. I like to tease them too. So that's something I truly enjoy.
Yeah, oh, I get that. And from Astrid, more like, because it's still like the round of this question, kind of the also closing remark, because then we finish kind of 90 minutes and we can still discuss like or chat afterwards, but just to have like a round, like to end it with this question before we are open to chat. But your perspective, is there space for more artists? Is there space for the niches? How is the development in the field?
Yes, it's an excellent question. I think that if you think about it, like it is a relative, like paleontology is a relatively small field in comparison to a lot of the other sciences. And I think that it has a sort of disproportionate amount of interest. So there aren't really that many people working in this space, whether it be paleo art or paleontology itself, and the lines blurred between those two, really. But the interest in it is massive. And there are a lot of very strong opinions about the way that things look and the way that they might have been, whether it has basis or not. But I absolutely agree that I want to see a world in which this field is very supportive. I think that traditionally paleontology has been filled with a lot of feuds, and I kind of think that's silly. Like, it, I mean, we're all trying to understand these animals together, and yeah, of course we're going to make mistakes, absolutely. And it's kind of like if somebody comes along, makes a 3D reconstruction of one of the animals I've worked on, I'd love to see it because I'd love to see what their perspective is and see how it is. And even if it's based on something else or a more artistic version of it, I think that they all have their own place. And just because someone's working on a specific animal doesn't mean that's the be all and end all, even for things that are done a billion times, like your giant theropods. I think that there's always more spins you can take on it. So there is absolutely more room for them.
That's really encouraging to hear, because I guess sometimes when you are in the bubble, you forget there are many more people outside of the bubble. So they could use more dinosaurs and more reconstruction, at least from my perspective. I just to close in 90 minutes, just to say that I'm really happy that you took your time to just talk a little bit about your work, to get to know each other, because like Astrid, I knew you before, like we had 1 or 2 chats before, but I didn't knew the other people, so it was really nice to connect.